Okay, welcome folks. I guess there's a first time for everything. I apologize for the starts and stops today. This is take number 4, and long story short, my phone isn't allowing me to see that anyone's connected, and I don't see any comments. That's why, even though you were connected earlier, I didn't see it, and so I pulled off a couple of misfires. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to do this blind, so to speak. I don't see any of you. I probably won't see your comments. It's just a technical glitch, but hey, that's what we've done for the last 91 episodes, is deal with the glitches. So I am just going to sort of take a leap of faith here and assume that I have live viewers with me. And of course, the replay viewers, doesn't really change a lot for you and I, because we're usually not connected live. So why don't we get started here? Welcome everybody. Finally, let's get this underway. Thank you so much for joining me on this rescheduled episode on a Sunday instead of a Saturday. I was a little under the weather yesterday, but feeling better today. It's all good. Beautiful day today. And I hope some of the colors are coming through. I didn't plan on this architecture being in the shadow today, but that's another thing that you can't always control. But hopefully you can make out that we've got some nice colors here. Some very vibrant villages in the 13th arrondissement. And today we get to do part number 2 of what I consider the Invisible River tour of Paris. And I won't go too deep into what the Invisible River is, but I do want to catch people up to speed if they have forgotten the most recent episode, or maybe you didn't see that episode at all. It was number 53 if you want to go back. I put a link in the description. But there used to be a river called the La Bièvre. La Bièvre came in from the south and it flowed through Paris for thousands of years. I mean, even perhaps in prehistoric times. And the Bièvre eventually found its way northward and joined the Seine River, which we know very well. And it was a very bucolic, pastoral atmosphere, at least at the beginning. And I'm going to show you where we are here, first of all. That is the map of Paris, of course, that we know so well. Our little red flag there shows us that we are right along the southern edge in the 13th arrondissement, close to the border. And I'll zoom in a little bit here, and you can see, again, the border in yellow on the bottom, the Parc Montsouris on the left, upper left is the catacombs, to give you your bearings. And we're going to explore this little area right here in the 13th. It's an area that's referred to as the Quartier des Peupliers. Sometimes it's called Maison Blanche. Sometimes it's called the southern part of La Butte aux Cailles. But you can see, for example, on the left of my circle there, the floral city, or the Cité Florale, is going to be a real treat for us. So the Bièvre River that used to flow through here, I mentioned the sort of bucolic atmosphere. This is an engraving that gives you an idea. And it was really quite lovely. There were water mills, windmills, bridges, lots of poplar trees, which is one reason this is still called the Quartier des Peupliers, or the quarter of the poplars, the neighborhood of the poplars. And ladies would be, washing the laundry in there, and people would be fishing, and kids playing along, and it just snaked its way all through the 13th, what would become the 13th and the 5th arrondissement of Paris. Here's another image that I shared actually on the first episode of the Invisible River tour. And I just adore this. This is next to the area that we call Gobelins. And it really gives you an idea. And then I came across another image of the Bièvre painting from the 18th century, just before the French Revolution, and I hope that's coming through on your screen, underneath these gorgeous tunnels that don't even exist anymore as far as I know. But it gives you an idea of what I think of as the sort of bucolic and pastoral and countryside atmosphere of what used to be the Bièvre. But then the story turns for the river, because industry started popping up, particularly mostly the 1800s. This gives you this next image here will give you a little bit of an idea. A lovely postcard. There are so many great postcards of this era. So you can see what you had is, unfortunately, the Bièvre became polluted, essentially. It was described as an open-air sewer because all of those industrial factories and workshops, you're talking tanneries and fabric dyers and paper mills and butchers and these large laundry factories, where they're just dumping all of their waste products into the Bièvre. And so it got so bad in the early 1900s, they buried it. And so that brings us back to where we are today, because you can still follow the path of where it was buried. Some say it's still flowing underneath Paris. Some say that it stops just at the border of town and goes directly into the sewer. I don't know if we'll ever have a straight answer on that, but I like to think of it as still flowing underneath us. At any rate, the spirit of the river certainly still flows through this area. And this is a great image I found of the general area that we are in. And it shows you the two arms of the Bièvre flowing through southern Paris all the way up to the early 1900s, when they had to cover it up. And we are, if I can just get this going. We're kind of right here. And I don't know if any of you have got a real eagle eye, you might see in that circle there's something called the Moulin des Prés. It was a windmill that we're going to see the location of, even though it's long gone. So you can see that's the idea here. The Bièvre River no longer exists, but it technically is beneath our feet here. And if you follow the path of it, I think that bucolic and pastoral spirit of the Bièvre still really pervades, and it gives you, it gives you really, really nice visuals and nice village atmospheres. So let's get rid of this stuff here. And back to this. There we go. So let's get on the move here. We are going to be using my trusty steed. And let me grab that. Again, it says I have no live viewers, but I'm trusting that you're all there. And we're going to follow the path of the Bièvre. But what's fun is along the way, you have a lot of course, like every episode we've done, you have a lot of fun surprises along the way that even I wouldn't necessarily expect. So here on the corner of the street, we've got a school. And I came across, I don't know how many of you are familiar with that very famous Paris photographer called Robert Doisneau. And he did the famous kiss in front of the Hôtel de Ville, a man and a woman kissing. Well, turns out he also did an image here. He took a photo here in the 1950s, 1956, I think. So I want to do a fun little compare and contrast of that. Oops, I got my mic. So what you're looking at is a side-by-side of, in the 50s, when Doisneau, the famous Parisian photographer, or Paris photographer, grabbed the kids here at the same corner. You can actually see here, I'm trying to line it up right, you can see the current street sign and then the street sign just in the photo itself. So that's fun to be walking through some of that history as well. What an amazing photographer this guy was. And we owe a lot of the great images of Paris to Mr. Doisneau, Robert Doisneau. So back to these houses. So they cover up the river. This whole area is kind of swampy, and there are stone quarries underneath, and you can't really build anything too high, which was the case in a lot of these outer sections of town. So what that did was it forced, thankfully for us who adore looking at these cute little homes, really forced the idea of single-family two-story homes. And there were a lot of projects, social housing projects, or even, housing projects for the middle class, which was the case around here. A lot of this was a big boom in the 20s and 30s, and there's even a little bit of an Art Deco feel, according to where you go. But yeah, so just to give you an idea here. And it's beautifully quiet. Let me get on my bike. Okay, here we go. And I gotta turn on the bike. There we go. So that's where we were earlier. Got the school and a little tree. Cute little square. Just a beautiful day. Great day for a bike ride. And you've got little, let me stop here because you've got little moments. The houses, if you can make out the ceramic work above the door. Let me give you a zoom. Oh, that's not going to work today, sorry, I forgot. I've got a filter on my lens, so we're going to have to stick to no zoom today. That's all right. So welcome everybody. If you're just joining, this is part 2 of the Invisible River Tour, or following the path of the Bièvre. Cute little set of homes here. Get ready for a lot of greenery today. This is a great time of year for it as well. Right at the spot there, or close to this spot at least, there used to be a windmill. and I want to show you right here, right next to the the trash bag. It's a big old plaque that reminds us that the Bièvre was here, the former bed of the river. And the placement of the Moulin des Prés, moulin of course meaning in this case windmill, but there were water mills as well, and pré meaning the field, the meadow. So the windmill of the meadow was actually about 20 meters or so, as I understand, from this spot, but it means that the river came right through here before there were any homes, and there would have been a windmill right in this area. Cute bit of architecture there too. So to give you an idea of, make sure my bike's not running away on me. A street like this is not an exact comparison, but I found one of these gorgeous old postcards of this same street. You can see it's called the Rue du Moulin des Prés. And I get a kick out of this in the 19th century and early 20th century. They corralled everybody together, you know, all the families had to get out and pose for these images. And I always wonder, you know, what was the preamble like to these photos? Because it must have been obviously a major event. I assume everyone's dressed in their best attire. They're trying to hold the kids as still as possible. And man, it must have been such a thrill, and they always seemed a little bit bewildered by the technology at the same time in these portraits. And I think that's just fantastic. So it gives you an idea of this area. Again, very bizarre, just so you know, if you're just joining. There's a glitch, so I can't see any live viewers or any comments. So you're all going to just talk amongst yourselves for this one. Apologize for that. I'm going to get back on my bike. Too bad that windmill's not here anymore, but at least it's remembered by the name of via the name of the street, and also that plaque that we saw next to the old trash bag. Trash bag's not always there, don't worry. There's a beautiful leafy roundabout there that we will enjoy in a moment. But I want to show you this street. This is one of the fun parts of this neighborhood. We've got a street called the Rue Dieu-la-Foi. Dieu-la-Foi is the name of a doctor. There is a pretty substantial hospital nearby, and so a lot of these areas are named, the streets are named after doctors, and physicians, and even an intern in one case. But this right here is what you've got is, again, one of those sort of housing projects in the sense that there were railway workers. And in the early 1900s, an organization initiative wanted to house the railway workers and give them some good middle-class housing. So this is the 1920s, more or less, and you got 44 single-family homes. It has that nice village atmosphere that we've been addicted to lately in previous episodes. So I think I'll get off my bike and we'll just walk down this so we don't miss too many details. I think that would be the best way to do it. All right, get myself situated. And hopefully you can make out the roofs are very particular. We've got these sort of mini thatched roofs, which I think are pretty adorable. And of course, all the color variation is superb. So we're in the 13th arrondissement, everybody. Some good awning vibes. Dead quiet. And what's fun about this is I feel like I almost could be walking along the river even though it's been gone for a century. I'm going to zoom in here for you on a medallion of the Bièvre. Can make that out. And usually, as I understand it, these medallions are oriented to mark the direction that the river would be flowing. So if I can turn this a little bit for you, so you can see that would be the direction, almost sort of a, you know, the top would be the, well, you get it. I can't figure out how to explain it, but direction of the medallion is the direction of the river. Sometimes I just let my audience fill in the blanks when I can't. Let's pause here. I'm going to kickstand it. This is a particularly nice one. Look at that. Wow. That's a postcard. Baldwin. Guy walking his dog. Wow, that gate. So the original families would have been the railway workers. Of course, by the early 20th century, Paris had just erupted in a network of beautiful, large, booming train stations. We'll see evidence a little bit later on of sort of the railway workers' union of sorts. They have a large health insurance building that's really pretty. So that they definitely had a big presence here.
Ah, d'accord. Tu t'abonnes. D'accord. C'est pour ça que tu te laisses là quand même.
If we look back from here too, it's another great view. Let me kickstand it. I was actually really torn about which way to enter this street, because I always like to start with the best possible impression. But I love those roofs, are just adorable. That's the word that always comes to mind when I see them. So the Rue Dieu-la-Foi, let me show you the name. Named after a doctor, like so many streets here. And we'll see a little bit more of the style of architecture. And let's move on, let's get back on the steed. Okay. Still, lots more to enjoy here. See more homes from that same project. And very cute little square here once again. Love this building. What a great surprise. Let's get the sign out of there on the left. There we go. Beautiful. We'll come back to that because I want to take a quick little detour. Speaking of leafy stuff, this is a street that's actually named after an intern that died at the nearby hospital while he was performing his medical type duties, physician duties perhaps. And so it's funny that a street would be named after an intern. Must have been really had a great reputation. So I wanted to just show you that beautiful home. Wow, especially up above the door there on top of the little shingles. Back to the square, and you're going to see there are, you know, in the very near distance, much more modern apartment complexes. So it just makes those other ones from the 1920s stick out even more with their little thatched roofs. And we've got one of these. We've got ourselves a Wallace fountain. In fact, let me come back around. And we'll try to find a composition here. It's good for the soul. This Wallace fountain isn't as old as you might think. It was installed here in 2011. So they're not all from the days of yore. But that faux Normandy, faux Tudor style home with the half timber construction is pretty. Sorry, pigeons. So yeah, the 13th arrondissement just has a lot of surprises. And always calm, always quiet. I'm sure some of you have come through here before. I know we've got a lot of hardcore explorers out there who have certainly been through the Buteau Kai and areas like this. But I'm glad that you're joining me today, whether live or later on the replay. Let's drive through this pretty roundabout, this traffic circle. Nice and slow to enjoy the moment. Let's all be present with each other here, present and grateful. Those are two words that I've been trying my best to bring into my life more lately. All right. Look at this, my goodness. So the street, in fact, not the street, but the river, the Bièvre, because we are following the path of that old, forgotten, invisible river, would have flown up through this street originally, of course, when none of these buildings were here. And the Bièvre made its way up through there, literally cutting through the center of today's square, and then right up through the right-hand side of that building. And this whole street that cuts through that I just pointed out is called the Rue des Peupliers. And I mentioned that word at the start, peuplier meaning poplar trees. Poplars would have been probably lining the Bièvre hundreds of years ago. So what just a great reminder, and I'm so glad to see that even though the river's gone and covered up and cemented over, it's nice to see that the spirit has still survived in a way. That's really the best way that I can put it. And I want to show you this view from here specifically. Facing the square, a beautiful set of those row houses. Get a little bit closer here. Look at that, facing that beautiful leafy circle, and you get to enjoy the view from one of these little homes. Let's continue along this circle there, the bus. Oh, there's a tour group there talking about what I was going to show you, but I guess we'll skip ahead. No point in having two tour guides in the same place at the same time. let these cars pass, and I want to show you that church. We won't let all the cars pass. We got stuff to do. So this is just a little detour. We won't go all the way there, but I just wanted to show you. It's a beautiful perspective from the neighborhood that we're exploring. There we go. This is Saint Anne of the Butokai. Sainte Anne de la Butokai. It's Byzantine in style. Sorry, I can't zoom in today. Byzantine 1912, and so it's right in the wheelhouse of Sacré-Cœur and Montmartre. And it was constructed partly by, or financed rather, partly by a large chocolate making family. And they were called the Lombard family. And I came across this. The company doesn't exist anymore, but I always love a good chocolate tin. Cute. So that family donated a huge amount of money to finish the facade of this church of Sainte Anne. And for that reason, the front of the church was nicknamed La Façade Chocolat, or the La Façade au Chocolat, the chocolate facade, just as an homage. And in fact, these two bell towers were named after the husband and wife of the Lombard chocolate family. La da da. Let's go. Cafes are doing all right. Let's do one more round before we leave this area. There's a big hospital to my right. I referenced the hospital a couple of times. That's why the streets are named after so many doctors. That building in the center it still is a health insurance headquarters for the railway workers. So I mentioned the rail workers had a big presence here, and a lot of them lived in these homes. And so this building is still the HQ for their health insurance, what we'd call a mutuelle in French. And let's move on to our other part of the tour. If you are still, in fact, there. I'm just trusting you are. Let's go. Here on the right-hand side, we've got a notable facade. Pretty impressive, huh? Take a look at this entrance. We can't access it, but I can give you a look. Wow. Beautiful, huh? With the archway, you see that? Wow. Great way to come home each day. Like it. Still in the 13th, I'm going to take us over to the Cité Florale, which will be a nice grand finale for us today. Right now we are rejoining the actual path of the Bièvre River. So again, Some people will tell you it's still flowing under us right now through the sewers or into the sewers. Some say it's all dried up and it was redirected outside the city, but I like to think it's still flowing under the streets. Maybe one day I can talk to a city official and he can give me the skinny on that. Let me pause here in the shade. Because I just want you to take a quick look at the vibe of this street. Clearly it has been developed relatively recently, right? But it's named after a fountain, and it used to be this. It used to be a winding little alleyway, which every neighborhood along the Bièvre was like this. And it was very, very working class, kind of rough and tumble shanty villages. If you're familiar with the history of Montmartre, it's almost the exact same thing with perhaps fewer artists. So this is called the Rue de la Fontaine à Mulard, and there used to be a fountain at the end of the street. And today, it doesn't quite look the same. They certainly widened it and put in some brick apartment complexes. I just want to show you that. Onward. Oops. There we go. You can see it's a little apartment complex there. It's garbage day today, so we see a lot of those bins out. On to the Cité Florale, also a former location of the river. And here, really just a minute away from the previous square, is another one. And let's make the rounds here because it's charming. I like this view here. It's an absolute, I mean, I'm a broken record, but it's an absolute different version of Paris, certainly from when I first started coming here. And there's just so many facets to these neighborhoods. Okay, so we're coming up here on the right-hand side. It's called the Cité Florale, the Floral City. And it runs right along where the Bièvre used to be. And I want to show you something really fun because I got to give a shout out to one of the freaks, one of my viewers. His name is DL Shearer. DL said to me, Corey, are you familiar that Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris, is looking to rehabilitate parts of the Bièvre River and bring it back up so that people can interact with it and open up this river again after being forgotten for 100 years. So I found from right on this spot, and I'm going to do a comparison. Can you make that out here? Can you see the comparison of the two? So on the right-hand side is the drawing of a proposal of Mayor Anne Hidalgo and others that they want to open up the river that literally is meant to be flowing through here. So I think I've lined that up pretty well for you. So wouldn't that be spectacular? Like another beautiful leafy promenade through here. That would be quite an attraction. And you can also see here in the drawing on the right-hand side just how low the Bièvre was. They had to fill in that whole valley. So anyway, wouldn't that be a nice project? And luckily, Hidalgo, for this project at least, luckily she got re-elected, because had she not been recently re-elected, this probably would not have happened. But it looks like it might now. They're going to start doing some real testing on it to see if they can pull it off. So this street that we're on right now won't even exist. That would be pretty glorious after all this talk of the invisible river. If it became visible again, that would be quite a treat. Okay, I'm going to park my bike here for the next section. I'm going to have to lock it up, so just bear with me. Let me see if I can give you a view. Hold up. You all can just chill out there for 1 second. And lock up the bike. Okay, I'm here, putting the mic on. Okay. Actually, I put you right next to this. So you can see, in fact, the river is underneath us. Okay, I think my bike is good. Let's go. La Cité Florale. And it is floral, you'll see once we get in. You can already catch a glimpse of it here from the outside. Here's an entrance point for us. How about that? So, I mean, that's just beckoning us forth. This was all built in 1928. They covered up the river around 1912, about the same period as the sinking of the Titanic. And then they started, developers came in, and again, sometimes it was lower middle class housing projects, developments, whatnot. Sometimes it was investors coming in to make upper middle class homes. And so this was a swamp, actually, between two arms of the Bièvre. And so when they filled in the river, it was kind of, you couldn't build a whole lot on it. But that's another reason why the homes are so small. But in the swamp, there used to be, before these homes were here, there used to be shallow pools of water, and they would freeze in the winter, and the local kids would be ice skating on the frozen pond. But then local entrepreneurs figured out that they could sell the ice. And that was a big business, of course. You could collect the ice in the winter and then sell it to wealthy families or cafes and restaurants in the spring and summer. And so a couple hundred years ago, they got smart, and these icemen put straw in the pond here before it froze, and then they excavated the large chunks of ice with the straw frozen inside, and it would have the effect of making the ice melt more slowly. And they would store the ice in these large underground bunkers that were called les glacières. And for a long time, this neighborhood was called Glacière for that reason, and there still is a metro station called Glacière. I have to admit, I'm missing your comments today, folks. I'm sure you're making them. I'll have to go back and check them out later. There's a little square here off to the side called the Square de Mimosas, or Mimosa. Let me show you the sign. So the streets here, if you've been through here, you've probably noticed, but all of the streets here are named after flowers. So mimosas, wisteria, irises, orchids. Look at that. Look at the colors. Wow. This bright sunny day I think is really helping us out for the palette today. We'll make a U-turn because we're not done yet with the Cité Florale. This is another entry point too here. I debated on whether I should use this as our perspective as we enter. Boy, that really right there is worth centering on. Just so much perfection. Oh, I just realized too that I can't see if any of you are sending super chats in. If you are, and if you have this episode, thank you so much. I'm definitely going to see that when I go back. I just realized that would be a shame if you were sending me tips and I couldn't see them. So again, 1920s. And it's still frozen in time, clearly. You're not allowed to park on the streets here. Even the residents can't park on the streets, which of course adds to the quiet. This is the Street of the Morning Glories. we take it for granted, but if there hadn't been so much unstable ground due to the stone quarries underneath these areas and of course the river making the land swampy and soggy, these neighborhoods would likely have not survived. They would have been replaced by much larger, much more profitable apartment complexes. So we owe a lot of this charm to just the fact that the ground of Paris just wasn't very good for building. Something about the lack of seeing your comments today is making me extra calm. Present and gratitude, those are the two words of the day for me. I love those checkerboard stairs. So the Cité Florale. Just about a century old now. And I want to cross the street so we can see the architecture. On both sides. So again, if you're in the 13th arrondissement, we're very close to the Parc Montsouris. This is obviously highly recommended. And it's a place that even if you've been here before, you can absolutely come back. Different times of year, different things are in bloom. And when it's wisteria season, that place is glorious. We're making our way back toward my bike, but the outside of this little micro village is great too. So I just didn't want you to miss that. Okay, everyone, we're going to wrap this up. Episode 91. A little bit of a rough start, but we got it in the end. Thank you for joining. And thanks if you're watching on the replay. One last look on this bright, beautiful, sunny July day of one of the entry points of the Cité Florale and the path of our old friend, the Invisible River, La Bièvre, which, if the mayor has her way, will sooner rather than later see the light of day in certain areas. And won't that be fun? You can be sure I'll be doing a live stream of that too one day if that happens. So thanks everybody. Have a great day from Paris. Hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend, what's left of it, and I will catch you on the next video. All the best. Thank you so much for those who joined live, even though I couldn't see you, and I'm sure you left a lot of beautiful comments and there were some super chats thrown in there because you're all just that wonderful. So thanks everybody. I will catch you on the next one. Take care and be present, be grateful. Bye-bye.